over Sinead Kavanagh. You know they can dig deep. You know they can push. I was expecting her to use that front kick a little bit more, but to be honest, because Leah opened up with low kicks, it gave so many opportunities for her to start catching and countering and stuff. So I think the very fact that the opening of Leah's game was kind of stifled with those kick catches, it just kind of threw her off a little bit. And then you just can't underestimate the power of Sarah Collins. I mean, and this goes for everybody that's got a background in judo, right? You know, one of my teammates, Jimmy Warland, one of the strongest people you've ever meet. Like, there's something about judo that creates this eternal strength in a human body. And when that right hook landed, it didn't surprise me at all that she was able to put her away. What surprised me is that she was able to land so many shots before the fight continued into a rear naked choke. Like, I may have even been tempted to jump in there after a couple of those hammer fists and stopped it. But, you know, as far as Sarah Collins goes, the whole week's been awesome because she's been having this realization that her career's moving very, very quickly, right? 5 fights, 6 fights, main event, title shot. You know, that's why I asked her in the cage afterwards, fighting Cyborg, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like it clicked in her head and she realized. And I'm fully tuned into her journey now. No matter where she goes, what she does, I'm excited for her.
Yeah, it's a real roller coaster for her, and in a slightly different way, it's a roller coaster for Leah as well. She's now got to pick herself up after a damaging loss. You know, a lot of people would have possibly looked at this fight as a bit of a foregone conclusion for her. She's the name in the division. She's the one that's been positioned as the next person in line. She's just been stopped in the first round. What do you think the best approach is for her now in the next few months ahead?
You know, I think maybe the best thing to do for her is to take a bit of time. I know that she's talking about, she's studying. I think she's starting new studies tomorrow. So she's going to have a lot of other things going on. And, you know, she's already had so many fights and achieved so much. I think maybe a short break and a refocusing on something else would be good for her to just kind of get a bit of a breather and see where she sits in this division. Of course, you know, we've got Pacheco against Cyborg playing out. So Leah's still going to play a role in this division. It's just been set back slightly. But, you know, the momentum now is on Sarah Collins' side. And, you know, this division needs to grow. We need more fighters in this division. So to see Sarah Collins add a name into the hat of the contenders is exciting. And I think, you know, Leah knows what the opportunity was tonight and what was missed. But you could still see how proud and happy she was for Sarah, which shows her professionalism.
Yeah. Talk to us about that co-main. It was an absolute banger of a fight to watch. Real sort of back and forth fight. It looked like Simeon was very close to being finished at the end of that first round. Another few seconds it might have been. Came back well in the second round. When you got to the end of the fight, generally when you watch a fight, you get a sense for what way you think it might go. What way did you think it was going? We obviously didn't get the benefit of your commentary.
Yeah, no, I think we all saw it pretty much the same. The third round was the most interesting round. Now, the first round, if you scored it at 10-8, that would have made it very difficult for Simeon to come back. But it was a competitive enough round, even though he was hurt a couple of times, to be able to get the 10-9 on the scorecards. The second round, it looked to me like Shavier had a bit of an adrenaline dump. And he was just a bit flat, like there wasn't a great deal coming from him. And I've actually just been talking about it in the back. You'll remember when Anderson Silva landed that knee on Bisping, thought the fight was over, adrenaline dump, all of a sudden you relax, and then you realise you've got 2 more rounds to go. It can really throw you off. So for me, that second round for Shavier was him just kind of, okay, all right, the fight's still going, we're still here. And, you know, Simeon was looking really, really good, but that third round was a very, very tough round to score. I thought that Shavier landed the better quality shots. I think Simeon probably landed more volume, and then obviously it depends on how you see the value of those strikes. I think Simeon felt the same thing as the rest of us as well. At the end of the fight, he was kind of leaning on the cage wall. He was like, you know, could have been better, should have been better. But, you know, he gets to regroup and go again. And I think we've got another interesting individual in Shavier that we can keep an eye on.
The auditorium is a hard hat area. Hard hats must be worn when the beacons are flashing. In the unlikely event that an evacuation is necessary, please follow the emergency exit signs to leave the building. The emergency exit is not by the service yard.
I've been practicing. I always wanted to work in an airport.
The auditorium is a hard hat area.
Wow.
Hard hats must be worn when the beacons are flashing.
Might be an early one, that's
In the unlikely event that an evacuation is necessary, please follow the emergency exit signs to leave the building.
I want an odd hat.
The emergency exit is not by the service yard.
Oh,
No,
okay.
we'll keep.
What I wanted to ask you about Simeon was, we've got Simeon and Luke both coming up in the same division, both coming up through the same gym. Luke was emphatic about how he wanted his career to progress from that point on. We spoke to Simeon back here. He says he's very much still learning in the sport, still growing, which I thought was a very mature approach to take. I asked him about potentially the global league at 205 pounds, and he was like, bring it on. He wants to swim in the deep end. Do you think that's a viable route for him? And is that the most common sense route for him, given the way he's developing?
Yeah, I think so. Look, what we saw tonight from both of those guys is that we've got legitimate light heavyweights in the UK for the first time in I don't know how long. Like, it's never been a very strong division, right? And I think that given the fact that both of those guys are preparing together, they're teammates, they're going to benefit so much if they're not on a collision course at some point in their career. Personally, what I would like to do, I'd like to grab Simeon and bring him back to PFL Europe. I want to see him back in my smart cage. I want to see him keep moving forward in the PFL brackets and potentially get to that global, the global tournament. What you have to remember is that the loss came to Jakub Nedo. Nedo went over onto the global scene and didn't do very well at all. You know, there are real killers in that division. And I feel like, especially seeing that performance, Simeon's got a bit more time to grow, right? Luke looks to me like he's got the momentum on his side, so we've got to ride that momentum. He mentioned Colmore, he mentioned Anderson. They're two good opponents for him in the near future, in my opinion. For Simeon, I think he needs to just work a little bit on his powerlifting, on his presence, and also on his confidence as well, because he was picking himself up off a loss and coming off 10 months out of the cage. Like, you can see that he wants to be active, and if it was up to me, I'd book him every weekend.
Nice. Dan, we've obviously heard some call outs today. You mentioned about Luke, obviously, either Corey or either Carl. Can we see him against Corey? Is that viable, and which fight do you prefer?
Yeah, I think the logical step is Colmore. I think that's the most logical step, right? Like, Corey's got his eyes right at the top of the division, and he's going to be calling out some really interesting people in the coming weeks, let me tell you. What I would like to do is just to see if Luke can maintain this momentum that he's started already. You know, he's already streaking. His last performance was a little bit slower than this one, and it was almost like he got into the cage tonight to really prove a point and prove his value in this division. Mm-hmm. But if he gets a win over Carl Moore, then he is ready for a title shot.
Nice. And then also we had Paul Hughes obviously talk about his fight against AJ McKee. I asked him in terms of before he fought his last fight, he said that he wanted to call out somebody else, and now he revealed it was Usman. So obviously not looking past AJ, but if he beats AJ, will that fight Usman? Is that something that you're excited about and something that you're looking to book?
Well, look, the reality is if Paul gets in there and beats AJ McKee, he can call his shots then, really. You know, like, AJ is the veteran in the division, the most dangerous guy in this weight class, aside from the champion, potentially. Like, if Paul indeed proves that he's ready for this big step up, and it is a big step up, we all know that. All the MMA fans and journalists, we all know it's a big step up. But if he proves that he's ready, then he's going to be ready for anybody in the world if he beats AJ McKee, right? It's one step at a time for Paul Hughes, but I passed him in New York a few weeks ago, and he said to me, I only want big fights. Give me the big fights. And regardless of what happens against AJ McKee, I think we're going to see Paul in the global tournament. I think we're going to see him on the regular season for global next year. Mm-hmm. And he's potentially going to have the likes of Mark Casey alongside him as well. So there are still lots of very tough fights in Paul's future, even if he comes through AJ McKee.
Nice. And that answered my last question in terms of what you're going to do with utilising Mark Casey, but global season sounds like a good idea.
I think that's what he wants. You know, I think he wants to chase that $1 million and get that 2025 belt around his waist, and then that's going to set him up for an opportunity to fight the champion, right? That's ultimately what we're doing with the global brackets are going to define the winner of that year. The winner of that year goes into the Champs v Champs card, and I think that's where, you know, if I'm Mark Casey, that's what I'm thinking. I want 4 wins next year on a real big stage against some real tough opponents, and then again, I'm right up at the top of the division, call my shots.
Brilliant, thanks, Dal.
Last one's a personal one for you. With all the work that you do with all these different jobs, what's your favorite part of this sport? This work that you do?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I love just sitting watching fights. I like it when I wake up in a day and I'm like, right, I have a Bellator card to research today. I'm going to sit and watch 50 fights. Like, they're my kind of days. I really enjoy the time when I can just sit and just immerse myself in it. But at the same time, having conversations with the fighters. You know, I was never particularly much of a talkative person when I was in training camp. I was always kind of focused on what I was doing. But to talk to all these different fighters, you know, I mean, you know, Luke Trainer's a good example. He's not only is a phenomenal fighter, but he's also a really lovely person, right? He's doing a lot of good things outside the cage. And just to have these conversations gives me a real good perspective of the value and the depth of the mixed martial arts community. So, getting to know these fighters a bit better is a real pleasure for me. All good? Sure.
So Sarah will be, and obviously now she's due to fight side. Do you think the fact that she's so young and the fact that she's got so little research, do you think that makes her really dangerous?
I do, and I think something else that makes her quite dangerous as well, because what she had 2 Muay Thai fights, but she's had loads and loads of judo experience. So it's kind of like Ronda in the early days. Like, we didn't see Ronda struggle until she started to try and be a striker, right? The thing with Sarah, and that right hook landed clean. She knows she's got that in her arsenal if she needs it. But ultimately, her mindset is judo. Let me close this person down. Let me get that head and arm position and put them on the floor where I know that my years of judo starts to come into play. And I think that the single-mindedness, if she's going into a fight with Cyborg, is get a hold of her, get her on the floor. Use that judo to slow her down and to take her out of her striking range. I think the fact that she doesn't have a lot of experience and there isn't a lot of footage, as you said, it can be an advantage if she can utilize it in that way. But she has to, stick to her wheelhouse, keep working what she's good at, and then, see what sticks against Cyborg. That head and arm throw, if she can get into that crucifix position against Cyborg, I think she can control her. That judo top game is a thing to behold. Oh man, all the time. Every time I wake up, I'm like, Shadowbox, it's fight day. Got my mouth guard in my bag just in case. I don't know why I still do that. I need to do medicals and all kinds of stuff before I step in there. Yeah, look, there's nothing like an adrenaline rush of stepping into a cage and feeling the pressure of the person in front of you trying to take your head off. I like that adrenaline rush. I like the fact that, all right, you're going to try and get to me. Let me see if I can get to you first, right? I love that roll of the dice. And, the commentary and the matchmaking, it's all great, but the adrenaline rush that comes from that, I've not found anything to equal it just yet. You can't creep around, you're too tall.
Pretty silent.
More cameras over me. Thank you very much, bro. Thank you,
Guys.
All good?
All good.
Any more? Awesome. Oh,
Shit.
hard hat guys waving us off. That's it. Get your hard hats on. Exits are on the side of the building. Arms and legs inside the car at all times. Thank you everybody for coming.
Cheers,
I appreciate it.